stop it. Was it an hour ahead?
Spring forward,
Yeah.
yeah. I just messed up everyone. Now, this morning, does anybody remember the 4 levels in a Hebrew teaching? Looking at Darlene. She's looking at me with a blank
Well, there's 1, and then there's 2.
Yeah.
And there's 3.
Say that again.
I think there's a 4th
4
one.
levels
Yeah.
for Hebrew teaching. And it's not only Hebrew, it's what all pastors really preach from, but they don't go down to the 4th level, they only say. The 4 levels, it's Pardes, it's P-A-R-D-E-S, and that's where they get each level from. The first level would be Pashat. And to be honest with you, the Pashat level is the first level, and that's where most of your preachers preach from. It's the Pashat level, okay? And Pashat simply means that it's literal. You know, they take everything that's in the Bible literally, and then it's historical. You know, so they'll pull in the literal into the historical, and then from that they pull in the geographical. So that's a Pashat level. Pardes means paradise. That's what, you know, in Hebrew Pardes means. And so it's an acronym for like a walled garden. So in a walled garden, you're going to have to dig through to get to the other side, to the wall. So that's Pashat. It's simple, just real simple, easy laid out. That, you know, if you said Jesus walked on water, you know, Jesus walked on water. They don't go into any detail outside of the geographical, would be the Sea of Galilee. It's literal and it's historical. The next level, and if you look in the Gospels, I'm going to use the Gospels for example. So if you look in the Gospels, for example, Mark, you read the Gospel of Mark, Mark is a Pashat level. Real simple, geographical, it's literal, it's laid out. So that you can get some idea when you read it. The next level you go into, it's P-A, and then a capital R would be your next one. So Pashat, Remez is going to be your next level. And when you get to the Remez level, you have allegories. Okay, you know, this is an allegory to what? It's a type, you get into the parables, so you can understand the parables a little bit better. And it's life applications. Okay, remember that first level is going to be where all your commentaries are coming from. Okay, so Matthew is a hint. It gives you a little bit of hint, and you go, okay, what's this talking about? Do you want to go deeper? Or do you want to stay just right at this level and not go any deeper? Some people, as I said, most pastors only preach from the Pashat level. This is Remez. A gospel for Remez would be Matthew. So if you want to see what a Remez level is like, you go to Matthew. The third one is Pardes, P-A, which is the little a, so that doesn't count. R, Remez. Next one is D, Doresh. Okay, Doresh level is biblical, you know, connection. So it's going to connect the book of Genesis with the book of Revelations, because you have the ending and the beginning. What happened in the beginning is going to happen in the end, and those two can tie together. Okay, so this is the Doresh level. You know, it's prophecy, it's patterns. You know, you've got identical, you've got opposites. You know, you've got you know, like, you know, find out what happened. You know, what was Adam and Eve like before the fall? You know, this is a Doresh level. It's where you have to search things out. It's not just plain and simple like Jesus walked on water. Mm-hmm. You have to really dig and get down to it. And then the last one is Sod. That's the deepest level, you know, of the 4 levels that you can go. Luke would be a Doresh level, by the way. So you got Gospel of Mark for Pashat. You got Matthew for Remez. You've got Luke for Doresh. Okay, so now we'll get down to the Sod, and that's where I'm going to go this morning. So it's going to be deep. I'm going to tell you, it's going to be deep this morning. You're really going to have to put your caps on to think. Sod level is the secret level, and as I said, this is the way Jewish people teach. They go to that Sod level because it gets into the deep things, and you know, it goes into the gematria. Gematria is numbers, where you know 7, 5 means grace, 7 means this, 1 means unity, 2 means. I mean, you go into all that, and you know when you take the Hebrew letters apart, you come up with numbers. The numbers mean something, It goes into the letter constructions in the Hebrew, because unlike our alphabet that's A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and all the way down to X, Y, Z, they don't mean anything. I mean, A means one, but you can't say A, you know, A stands for apple, A stands for able, or whatever. But they don't have the picture connotations that go with it as the Hebrew does. Okay, so you get into every letter is a picture, and you can take in the Hebrew a word and rearrange the letter and come up with another word, so it's hidden within a word. So it's like a secret. You have to search it out to figure out what's hidden in that word, you know. And some of it's mystical insights. Like, okay, you have to go back to, you know, to the Jewish writings and to figure out how this is going to go. And really, to get to the solid level, you need to know Hebrew, which most, you know, Hebraic people, they teach, you know, from the Hebrew, so they know it. And a good book, what book would be a good book for Sod? You know, what's in
Revelation.
Exactly. Because here you're getting into Revelation, and because Revelation you're getting into symbols, you know, 666, for example.
Yeah.
There's your 666. What does that mean? Well, we always think it means mark of the beast. What does it mean in Hebrew? So that's where you would search and you would dig and say, okay, there's got to be more to it. The bowls, the cups, everything that opens up in there. You know, the churches. Who is he talking about in there? What's going on there? It's more obviously what's going on there, and that's the solid level that you're talking about. And so, you know, so that's part A. So I went over that this morning simply because when I get into this teaching, I'm going to go into that solid level, and some of you are going to go, huh? So you're really going to have to put your thinking caps on, you know, when we go into this. And I'm going to go to Genesis, you know, 28. And again, I'm reading from the Hebrew Bible, so if you've got Bibles with you, it's probably going to read different. And we're going to look, you know, I'm going to read 28 through 22, because once you go past, you know, 22, you go into Jacob, you know, Rachel and Leah and all that stuff. So this is in Genesis 28:10. It says, Jacob departed from Beersheba and went toward Haran. He encountered the place and spent the night there because the sun had set. He took from the stones of the place which he arranged around his head and laid in that place. And he dreamt, and behold, a ladder was set earthward, and it reached heavenward. And behold, angels of God were ascending and descending on it. And behold, Hashem was standing over him, and he said, I am Hashem, God of Abraham your father, God of Isaac. And the ground upon which you are lying, to you will I give it, and to your descendants. Your offspring shall be as the dust of the earth, and you shall spread out powerfully westward, eastward, northward, southward. And all the families of the earth shall bless themselves by you and by your offspring. Behold, I am with you, and I will guard you wherever you go, and I will return you to this soil. For I will not forsake you until I have done what I have spoken about you. So this is God speaking to Jacob. Okay? Jacob now awakes. He says, Jacob awakes from his sleep and says, surely Hashem is in this place, and I didn't know it. And I've heard a lot of sermons preached on, you know, do not, you know, that God is in a place and don't let you miss it. You know. And he became frightened and said, how awesome is this place? This is none other than the abode of God, and this is the gate of the heavens. So Jacob arose early in the morning and took the stone that he had placed around his head, and he set up a pillar. And he poured oil on top of it, and he named that place Bethel. However, Luz was the city's name originally. Then Jacob took a vow, saying, if God will be with me and will guard me on this way that I am going, I will give meat to eat and clothes to wear, and I will return in peace to my father's house, and Hashem will be God to me. Then the stone which I have set up as a pillar shall become a house of God, and whatever you will give me, I shall repeatedly tithe to you. Now, I know you all have read this, you all are familiar with that, but there's certain things in there that really stand out to me. One thing where it says, you know, again, no Old Testament, no New Testament, where it says, you know, that, you know, this shall become a house of God. What is going to become a house of God? What is he talking about that we can tie in to the New Testament? we're gonna look at the temples. This is the house of God. This is gonna be the temples. So here we found Jacob in this point. He's fleeing from Esau. Up to this point, he's fleeing from Esau. And Jacob, his name means he restrains, leaves his home in Beersheba, and he heads toward Haran. Now, Jacob had lived there all his life. History says he was 77 years old when he left. Now, we look at 77 today and say, well, that's old. But back then, that was young because people were living 120, 140, they were living over it. So he was just really like a spring chick. But, he leaves there, and I can just imagine, if you were born and raised in an area, your whole family, you knew everybody around, and then all of a sudden, you've got to run for your life. He's running. He's literally running because why is he running? Well, the chapters before told us he stole the birthright. He's going to steal something. So, it would present many different emotions with him. Oh, what's going on? It's one thing to leave because, say, well, I'm moving to Tennessee. That's one thing. But it's another thing when you say, okay, I've stolen something. Boom, I got to get out of here. I'm going to be away from my family and friends. So he's running. He's going by night. He's doing everything that he can do and trying to, think about it. If it was you and you were on the run, wouldn't you try to go in not obvious places? In other words, I'm not going to take 70 to get to Frederick.
Yeah.
I'm going to go 40. I'm going to go back roads. I'm going to go through the woods.
Yes.
I'm going to do anything I can possibly do. So if you're looking for me, you're not going to find me.
Right.
And all the time, what is this going to do to me personally? What would be one of the things that would happen with him? One of the things I can tell you that would happen to me would fear. Oh my gosh, these people are going to catch me. What are they going to do to me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that would be my number one thing is fear.
Right.
And then losing fear of losing my security. I was secure there. I had family. I had friends. I had support. Now I'm by myself. I don't have anybody there to support me, to help me, to get me over this next thing. And I'm lying. I'm a cheater. And everything. And it presents all sorts of emotions, not only to them but to the community that he left, his family and friends. Because if I was a mother and my child run away and I had no idea, even though he's 77 years old, he's still your child.
That's right.
But where did he go? What provoked him to go, and do this? And then you have to look back, and Jacob was who? He was the grandson of, exactly, he's the grandson of Abraham. So then I start looking at, okay, I'm the grandson of Abraham. If I'm the grandson of Abraham, what's that mean to me? Well, that means some of Abraham's seeds has to be implanted in me.
Yeah.
Okay? Abraham's supposed to be a father of many nations, as the seeds on the saying those should be the nations. So something of that had to be planted in his grandson. Some part of me, some part of Dr. Larry has to be implanted in John and Joshua and Rebecca, and to their kids and their kids and their kids. And you pray that the seed that's been implanted in me gets implanted in him, that when he gets married and Joshua gets married, that seed's passed on. Same thing with Jordan. His mother and his fathers had to implant seeds in him, and it has to come from a lineage somewhere that seed's been implanted in him. And so, Abraham, had a calling on his life. The seed that's been implanted in Jacob has a calling on his life. Mm-hmm. And I don't care who you are. Anybody in this room has a calling on their lives. They have a destiny that they have to fulfill. Do they zig and zag and come and yes. But ultimately the seed has to take root somewhere and grow and sprout and bud and bloom and blossom, and to get you to the next point that you need to be. And so he received the promises of God because of the Abrahamic covenant, because of his grandfather. To preserve that seed had been given to his grandfather, and now that seed's been passed down to him. My grandmother, a godly woman, Church of God could tell you every scripture in the Bible from Genesis to Revelation. That seed gets passed down to them. My mother got passed down to me. And so, Jacob is like us, really. We want to do the things of God. Sometimes we just fail. Face facts, we're not perfect. We want to do the things of God. We want to, go forward. We want to move. But then we hit this wall and we, like Jacob did, and it's like, I can't get past this wall.
Mm-hmm.
I can't move. And so, we go out of the gate running, but as soon as we hit that first obstacle, we slow down and we either figure out how to get over the obstacle, or we go around it, or we stay where we are and say, that obstacle's too big, I can't move that wall, that obstacle. And so like Jacob is like us, he was spiritually weak. And why was he spiritually weak? He had all this stuff implanted in him. But you can have, I can feed you every Sunday here. And if you do nothing with it, you can be spiritually weak by Monday morning. Because this walk is not just a Sunday go to meeting here. This walk is a daily, each and every day, every second of the day. And there's consequences and there's circumstances and there's hurdles you have got to jump over, and you can't jump over them by yourself. You have to have a God with you that's going to show you, lead you, and direct you. And know that he's there. And so like Jacob, we become spiritually weak. And you will become weak when you don't get in the Word, when you don't know the Word, when you don't study the Word, when you don't understand the Word, when you don't seek out what you don't understand, saying, you know what, I don't really understand what that phrase means. I don't really understand what God is trying to say to me. Or I'm having these dreams, and what do they mean? You seek people out to get you over that hurdle, because if not, you'll be blocked by that hurdle, obstacle, whatever it is, and never get around it, because you'll constantly be thinking about that obstacle. And so here, he was spiritually weak. He didn't have to worry about missing church services, or reading the Bible, or praying, or fasting. But he did have a problem with pride. And see, sometimes when we hit that obstacle, we do not want to go to somebody and say, I really need some help. And that is called pride. I'm too prideful. I know how I can get around this thing, and I know what I can do. And in reality, all of us need help. So don't think I'm picking on any one person here, because I'm not. And I don't know, maybe somebody needs to hear this, and I just don't know who needs to hear it. But anyway, this is the message he gave me. And so, fasting, but he did have a problem with pride and self-sufficiency, and so do we. I can do this. I can figure out why that obstacle is there. I can, I don't need to go to Pastor Darlene and say, Darlene, can you explain why I'm up against this obstacle? There's no shame in that. But see, our flesh wants to say, I can figure it out, and I'm too prideful. I'm not going to go ask her. I'm not going to go, sit under her at a Bible study, because, after all, I've read this book and I know everything. So why should I go? And so Jacob, we see the same thing in Jacob as we see in each and every one of us here. We get too prideful with it. And he did not stand up for what he knew was right. When you know something's right, you stand up for it.
Yes.
You don't say, well, I'm not supporting you. You stand up for it. And it's a lot to stand up in this day and age and everything that's going on for what is right. And why didn't he stand up? Self-sufficient. I don't have to stand up, I'm self-sufficient. So he made bad choices, and from peer pressure, he got into trouble and he did things that was not godly. And so you kids are faced with that in school. It's a vicious thing. You're faced with it in school. You're faced with it in the work field. You're faced with it wherever you go. You know what's wrong, but yet you did it and you get into trouble. And it's not godly. That's why that thing back in the, I guess it's 80s and 90s come out, WWJD, what would Jesus do? And it was to thrust the kids, and it was to thrust everybody that, okay, I'm going to steal the offering. But you have to have in the back of your mind, what would Jesus do? Would Jesus take the offering? No. So that should be our first thing that we come to. What would Jesus do in this situation? Because, I cannot be self-sufficient anymore. I have to rely on him to get me over this hurdle, around this obstacle, to my destiny, to my destination, wherever that is, and in what he wanted to be. He thought he could do it on his own. We think we can do it on our own. If I don't need no help, I can do this on my own, And he was doing it his way without God's direction. See, we need God's direction. We need God to say, obstacle up ahead, turn right. But we don't. We'll just keep going straight on for that obstacle, or we do it in our timing and not on God's time. Well, I'd like for you to go, to Tennessee and preach. Why are you going to Tennessee?
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to get a rush at it. I'm not going to rush. I don't have the money. He didn't ask if you had money. He didn't. He says, will you go? God's timing, God's direction, God's leading. And then again, you can't run ahead of God. That's a dangerous thing to do too. God requires us to think, be right and step. And all it takes is God's army and one person to be out of sync, and it throws everybody off. Watch the military. Watch when the military walk, they're all in sync, right? That's what you're taught boot camp. To march uniformly. And I'm sure if one person's out, I'm sure somebody's going to be yelling, say, yes. And that's what God's telling us today. You're out of step. Get in step. Get where you need to be, and don't run ahead of God. So he's going to lack the timing of God in his life. So Jesus is now so Jacob is now on the run because he's stolen the family's birthright. He stole the inheritance from Esau.
Mm-hmm.
And so Jacob is going to have to come out of his self-sufficiency,
All right.
who he is mode, and put his trust in God and put his trust in the promises that was made through his grandfather Abraham. So it's time for the seed to take root and grow. It's time for the 77-year-old man to grow up. Oftentimes you think, when is this person ever going to grow up? But you look at the patriarchs and the matriarchs, and it took them years. They're a work in progress. It's the same thing. We're a work in progress. And it did not happen once, but only after he got the flesh under control. So you got to get the flesh totally under control. And like you and me, he struggled with the flesh. He would walk in righteous steps sometimes, and sometimes he would walk in sinful steps. Are we any different?
No.
No, we're not. Sometimes we walk just as straight as can be, and other times we're leaning this way and doing sinful things, knowing what we should be doing, but not doing it. Because that little ticker on the inside, it always tells you, hey, you're supposed to be doing that. Hey, you're supposed to be giving this. Hey, you're supposed to be tithing this. Hey, you're supposed to be doing this. And it goes on and on and on. We go, that's not better. And then we don't do it. He would struggle with periods of being up. He was on top of the world. And he would struggle with periods being down. Now, why do you think he was down? Because he was self-sufficient. I can do this on my own. I don't need to go to Mike and ask, please, Mike, pray for me. I feel so down in the dumps, and I'm not up, and I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and I don't know what's wrong with me. But no, I'm self-sufficient. I don't need anybody to do that. And that's part of what this fast is about. I think Pastor Darlene and Dr. Larry says, if you have problems, call. Just don't think you're self-sufficient and that, that you're a Wonder Man or Wonder Woman and can go through this thing like nothing, because it's hard. It's a discipline. It's something you're not used to. If you don't fast often, it's difficult. It's difficult. I don't care if you're giving up TV or giving up candy or giving up, a meal or doing whatever you're doing. It's the flesh is dying. And then, when the flesh dies, it hurts. It's painful. And so, he knew what he should do, but he lacked the strength to do it. And see, that's what's happening with us today. We know what we're supposed to do. We know what your calling is supposed to be, but yet we just don't seem like we've got the strength. I just don't have the strength to do it. I'm just too weak to do it. And often he was found doing what he should not be doing. And we do the same thing. Often we find ourselves doing what we shouldn't be doing. But with all this, God still had his hand on him. The same with us. He still has his hand on each and every one of us. He was a man of faith. He was an example of God's mercy and grace. You want to see mercy and grace? You look at Jacob. You know, everybody talks about New Testament. It's in the New Testament too, but it goes all the way back. Even if you want to take it back to Adam and Eve, that was mercy and grace. God could have wiped them out when they did what they did, but no, mercy and grace came in. So there was 4 facts that, you know, stood out about Jacob. You know, he was God's choice. God was going to pick him. He was carnal, just like we are. You know, he was a man of great faith. And he would be, you know, and God would reward his faith. So now, here he's on the run from his family in order to save his life. So he's a so-called fugitive. That's what we look at. He's a fugitive. He's on the run. He has nobody he goes with. You know, so he's left, you know, where he was in Genesis 28:10. You know, picks up. He leaves Beersheba, which means dweller in God, or it means well of an oath. So here, Abraham, here's your oath coming in. Here's where, you know, here he's a dweller of God. He's living in a place where God dwelt. And he's going to go to Haran, which means strong and enlightened. I'm telling you, God is going to enlighten this man on where he goes. So, you know, and it's also a caravan route. So, in Hebrew, when you break it down, so that tells me that when he left Beersheba and went to Haran, he went by way of the caravan route to get where he was going. And it would be, historians say, about a 500-mile journey. Okay? So we're not looking just running up the street and back. 500-mile journey. That's a long journey. Verse 28, chapter 28, verse 11 says, he encountered the place and spent the night there. Now, encountered in Hebrew is ha-makrom, and it means the place. So this place would be the place where Abraham took Isaac to offer him up. So he, you know, he's back to the place, the seed that's been put in him. He's gone back to the roots of where his grandfather was, the place. It is here that he's going to see the ladder that goes up and down. It's the boat of God. It's the, you know, the gate of heaven that ladder is going to be. And this would be the spot where the temples would one day stand. That's why that, you know, that last verse in there ties in a sod level to that thing. So he leaves Beersheba, and some Bible translator says he came upon a place. This in the Hebrew means that he stumbles upon it. I love it. He stumbles upon it. Or he just happened to come upon this location. Now, really, you look at that and you know that's God. You just don't stumble upon anything. You know, you just don't happen to come upon it. So he stumbles upon it. You know, and it just happens to be as the sun was setting. Okay? So he lies down, and what's he going to use? A stone for a pillow. I often look at that. I thought, I couldn't lay my head on a cold stone and sleep. But I guess if you're running, if you've got fear in you, and your heart's been just beating like this because you're trying to get away from everything, anything, I guess when you're tired enough, you can sleep anywhere. Because I can remember we were in Amsterdam that one time, and we had like a 12-hour layover, and then we toured the city, and we came back. We all stretched out on the floor and went to sleep. And I, you know, never in my life would I think I'd curl up on the floor and be able to go to sleep, but we were sleeping one right behind one another because we were all in a group. We all put our suitcases around us and we laid on them, so it was like laying on a stone, I guess. I don't know. So, you know, he lays his head on this stone. And, you know, a stone in Hebrew is even. It's E-E-N. And it's, again, where the temples were built. It's where the Ark of the Covenant is one day going to stand on that stone. I mean, this stone means a lot. You don't think, you know, you just read it in normal ways and you just think, oh, it's a stone. No, this is a significant stone on where Jacob's laying his head. You know, he laid his head down on that stone and he dreamed angels ascending and descending. And some of the Mishnahs and the Jewish commentaries, they say the stone was like a pipe. I can't picture that because I'm not a plumber. But they said that he wrapped the stone around him like you would wrap a pipe. Now how you can do that with a stone U-shape, I don't know. But that's what the Jewish commentaries are saying, that, you know, it was like that. And as he lays his head down, he dreams of the angels again, ascending and descending, going up and down on this ladder. And Jacob in verse 17 says, and this is the place, the house of Elohim, and the gate of heaven. He names the place Bethel, the house of Elohim. Place in Hebrew, again, is the makron. And it means to rise up. That's what it means. It's a kaf, a vowel, and a mem. So it means to rise up. So this ladder, the word is sulam, or sulam in Hebrew. Now get this. This is how you can take this thing back. And this is the solid level, so really think here. It's sulam, S-U-L-A-M. And it comes from the root word, because see now we're going to go back to the root word, which is salel. And it has a meaning of to cause to return to the upright way. Okay, this is it. Cause to return to the upright way. And if you take that salel, S-A-L-A-L, to the next level, you get the word kala, K-A-L-L-A-H. So you break it down this way, you break it down again, and we're breaking it down to this final thing, kalal, and that means bride. So kalal means to complete, to be perfect, to make complete. So by taking these words apart in the Hebrew, we find that Jacob has come to the place of betrothal. Just on that rock, that's worth this rock, and you take it down. So this ladder, now this is an interesting thing about the ladder. I've heard many different teachings and explanations on the ladder that went up. When you really think of a ladder, you know, I was thinking of a ladder the other day, because when I walk up to Home Depot, I look at the ladders and all the different sizes and shapes and what they can do and not do. But one thing struck out to me about a ladder is that it's got to be attached to something at the top. You know, if not, it's going to fall over.
That's right.
And it's got to be secure on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I started thinking about the ladder, I've heard people saying this ladder was DNA, you know, with angels descending and descending, and I'm looking at the ladders and I'm thinking, this ain't a very wide ladder. How are these angels going past one another up this ladder? I mean, this is just the way my mind is. But then when I started thinking back, saying, okay, this is the place of where the temples are going to be built. Now, you know I have to pull the temples in here one way or the other. One thing that was not holy to God was ladders and steps.
Okay.
And if you think back and you look at the tabernacle, you look at any of the temples, any of the sacrifices that were done outside was done by a ramp. It wasn't done with ladders, because when we were in Tel Dan, remember, right, I showed everybody that the altar that was there had steps, which is unholy.
Right.
I personally think, and so do some other people now, thinks that this ladder was actually a ramp that was going up and down. So he sees this, you know, he sees this thing going up and down. And then if you take it apart a little bit more, from verse 12, you know, it said it went earthward to its top, reached heavenly, and behold, the angels of God ascended and descended on it. Now if you take on it and translate that into the Hebrew, it means on him. So see, that's where you have to really know Hebrew, on him. And behold, Hashem was standing over him, and he said, I am Hashem, God of Abraham, your father, and God of Isaac, and the ground upon which you are lying, you will, and I will give to you and your descendants. And so descendants, you know, standing over him. When you translate that, that's beside him. If you take that, you know, and he says he's going to give it to his descendants, who are his descendants going to be? Well, that descendants means the seed. We're going back to the seed again. You know, so it keeps going back and forth from the seeds. Let's see. So, you know, so he was standing beside him. It was his seeds, and his offspring is going to be his seeds. So you have all this in here. Rabbi Eleazar says about the ladder, he said the ladder stood in Beersheba. Now, picture this, because I worked on this thing all day long yesterday. In my mind, I am You know, Joshua was up in the office, and I was trying to find Beersheba on the map, and trying to find where Haran was, and trying to find, you know, where Lutz was, and all these places. But it says the ladder stood in Beersheba, and in the middle of its incline. Now, when he said incline, that sparked me again, because again, a ladder to me wouldn't have an incline. It couldn't have an incline.
Go straight up.
Yeah, it would have to be a ramp. Okay, so it reached at opposites. The temple for Beersheba is situated in the south of Judah, and Jerusalem is situated in the north. And on the boundary between Judah and Benjamin, and Bethel was in the north of the territory of Benjamin, on the boundary between Benjamin and the sons of Joseph. Consequently, the ladder whose foot is in Beersheba and whose top is in Bethel, the middle of its land is opposite Jerusalem. That deep. I read the thing over and over and over yesterday. Okay, Lord, really? Here's the ramp. Here's everything where it's supposed to be. It's right there. And it goes on to say that Lutz and Jerusalem and Bethel are on the same place. You know, so when you read Lutz, you think, okay, he's way out in the country, you know, like Columbia. No, it's all the same place. Another interesting fact, you know, about where Jacob was in the beginning was he encountered the place. And as I said, you know, sometimes when we read the Bible, we just read it and we just go over these words and we just go on to the next. But when he encountered the place, what place? So this is where your mind has to kick in and say, what place? What's he talking about? So the rabbis say this can also mean place of intercession. So we find Jacob praying where his father, his grandfather, they were there. They were the ones who would have put the seed in him in the first place. And now Jacob is going to continue to do what has been planted in him, and to pray and to make intercession on this stone, which is the foundation stone, which the temples would one day stand, and Jacob would act as a high priest inside of where the Holy of Holies would be. That is mind-boggling to me, how you can take just those few verses and just take that thing apart and say, okay, you know, you look at the high priest, you know, you just think, you know, you look at the modern day high priest, you know, in the New Testament, you know, on those high priests. Well, take it back. First high priest was Adam. And you can weave this thing right on through on what it was supposed to be. And Jacob is going to be a high priest. He's going to be laying on that stone. He's going to be where the Holy of Holies would be. Dr. Diana Dye sums it up this way, and I love the way she sums it up. She says the encounter or to intercede had a total value of 153. Now, remember I told you the matria, side level. Okay, so that's what that totals up to, is 153. The name Beelzebub, which he was the master builder of the tabernacle, he's going to do the one with all the furniture, and whose name means in the shadow of God, also had a group value of 153. In the Torah portion, it says Hashem was standing over Jacob. Okay? The imagery here is Hashem, or God, is casting his shadow or image onto Jacob. Therefore, Jacob, in a sense, is also in the shadow of God. But where Bethel built the physical tabernacle, Jacob, as Israel, built a spiritual house through the 12 tribes of Israel, which the Holy of Holies, or the kingdom, would burst forth in all four directions. She ends it this way. She says in John 21, bringing in the New Testament, describes the day breaking, which is an idiom, because you have Hebrew idioms in the Bible, for the kingdom, with Yeshua standing on the shore and the role of a high priest. For he had made intercession on behalf of the nation through his own shed blood. The disciples saw a fire of burning coals and a net full of 154 fish. The spiritual seed of Jacob had truly burst forth in every direction And the fullness of the kingdom was made manifest because of intercession of our high priest. Thanks be to God.
Amen.
Amen. Food for thought, it'll make you think.
Amen.
Very
It's
good.
a